Hello and welcome to another episode of T to the Power 4. Tips, tricks, toys and tools for your R and Linux works at the command line. We saw how to customize the shell prompt last week, so this week we're going to continue in the same area by customizing the shell a little bit more. In this episode 000, set everything up. We show how to do Alias and grep with color in 1, and then last week episode 2. The GitHub repo, which I'll show again in a second, but otherwise just under my name and repo name T4, has a couple of comments, questions, suggestions, and reports back regarding C shell and other things. And someone just left a note, actually with an even fancier Git command prompt, shell prompt customizer that's included in some Git packages. So thanks for all that. So today then, just basically how to take care of the shell and make a couple of things simpler with really simple things, first things, which to some of the experts may be too trivial, but I've learned by doing this series that there's actually nothing so simple that it should be unsaid. There's always something that could be a first for someone that they haven't heard. So today I'll just focus on two really simple things, tab completion and command line search, before we get to aliases. So it's really sort of three tips in one, but they're all simple. So the first one that's really fantastic, but that some of you may still be unaware of, is tab completion. Most programs have that. They drop a config file in a location where bash looks for it, and then bash learns about the possible command extensions so that it can complete. Let's look at that for just 1 second. For example, with R, that brings all of us together. If I just start typing R and C and hit tab, automatically it becomes R command, because the shell now knows that if I start with the capital C, the only completion could be R command. If I then type a lowercase c and hit tab again, it actually doesn't complete, and double tapping shows me the alternatives. R command could be check or config. And if I then type just R command check, then it goes off immediately. So for example, if I just go into insane here, use tab command, tab completion just to make the change directory easier. So here again, R space C tab ch check, and then I could just say digest and use tab completion to get the most version in between build, and it goes off and checks them. So tab completion really useful for R. One of the things that makes the Debian Ubuntu package a bit different from the other ones. I think I was once working on a system that doesn't have it, and you really do miss it. So tab completion is great. It's also really good, for example, for Git, which we will get to in just a second. So for example, if I just start with git sh, it knows, actually it doesn't quite yet know that I want checkout because it's cherry and cherry pack, but if I do git check, it knows checkout. And now the best thing comes. Look at this now. If I hit tab twice again, it sees all the different branches, and if I just type B, it fills in the one branch that matches it, and tab completes away from it. So really useful for R, really useful for Git. It's a built-in feature, and we're not going to go into how to customize scripts for tab completion, so we'll just leave that as it is. Other things that matter quite a bit. Once you have a command, Control A jumps to the beginning, Control E jumps to the end. Those are keys that really became muscle memory for me, because I then don't need the keys on the keypad. Control A, Control E. We'll get to that with another program where I then actually undefine Control A or reserve it back, because I need it quite a bit. Another really useful one is Control R for searching the command prompt. So here, for example, let's do this again, Control R. With the capital R gets me the last completed command, or the one that fits it here, which was the R command check things. And Control L, just as I've done, cleans or redraws or refreshes the screen. So those are pretty good. That, with the slight parenthesis, gets me to another topic that I meant to bring up in this series, which is just have your eyes and ears open and follow a couple of feeds or Twitter accounts or what have you. Julia Evans, aka Borg, has a fantastic one with her Zines. I include those every now and then also for my students. So this one is a nice one because it talks about Control R right here for searching, as well as Control A, E, and L at the end of the line, and a couple of other things that I didn't even have time for. And coincidentally, this one was one that she just posted or emailed last week. I'm on her subscription line as well. Next one to talk about is aliases. It's basically the simplest thing to write something down that's simpler than shell functions or shell scripts. We had already seen some when we looked at colors in the command line history. So if I say alias here, I see a couple of ones that were defaulted and a couple of ones that I added. And how can one do that? So I can show you mine, and they're also on the next slide. This is something that I needed for a while with the program I'm using right now to record this with OBS, Open Broadcaster Studio, and it wouldn't capture fonts for a certain while, so I just had to put this one up, and I got tired of looking for typing the really long ones, so I defined shorthands, but I no longer need them because they got fixed. But here I had one, for example, that I used for Docker all the time. We haven't come to Docker yet, but the minimum invocation to mistyped, to run something in Docker, for example, if I want to run the official R-base container for R that we're at the Rocker project stand behind, I have to type this mouthful of docker run rm for remove After Effects, terminal use and interactive, and then the name of the Docker. And that just got super boring after a while, so I defined myself a little alias, dkrr, docker run, which does the same. And then after a while I realized if I run it that way, and let me just show you again, or actually let me show you that by invoking the container but staying in a shell. And if I then say touch this file now and go out and look at this file now, it's not owned by root. What did I just do? Oh wait, yes, exactly. So that used to be owned by root, and then I redefined the default alias to have the Docker run as my own user ID, so now the file is owned by me rather than root files being left behind. But sometimes you still need it as root, so for dkrrr, Docker run as root, I left it out, and similarly I defined one that I don't need all that often, Docker run as with x11. Similarly, this one we'll also get to when I use Emacs under Bayobu topics we get to. I have a particular alias, so I'm sure we'll encounter that one. So how to write them is really straightforward. You write alias followed by a key equal value assignment. Value can be an expression, as we've seen on the previous slide with print working directory or display. It's simpler than bash functions, it's simpler than shell scripts, and it's obviously more limited than both of these two, and we just did the demo. And so that basically concludes what I wanted to show today. Tab completion, Control A, E, and L, as well as simple aliases as 3 little shell tips that may, for now, conclude the shell series. We may come back to it later, but I first want to get to some other things that I really want to talk about in the series. And one of those is multiplexing, made popular by GNU Screen, later by Tmux, and the Bayobu app, initially only in Ubuntu, but now everywhere for your Macs as well, in Brew. Reps both of those, and we'll spend a session or two on those, I think. Other than that, here's the repo, T4, under my name on GitHub. Leave comments, correction, fixes, suggestions, what have you. I haven't quite figured out how to best aggregate comments per session. Maybe we'll do that via the wiki right now. Just drop it into issue tickets. You can search the issue tickets. Upcoming, I mentioned that last week too. Sadly, you know, with everything that's happening in 2020, we don't have actual conferences, so our finance fell to the wayside, and I figured the morning that I would have given an RCPP intro seminar, I'll just talk into this microphone and that camera and do it online and streaming first, so I may see some of you on May 7th. And similarly, next Saturday is a virtual conference here in Chicago with a couple of and with a couple of Chicagoans. And will give a short speech, short talk about some aspects of Docker and Rocker. So maybe see you there. That's all I had for today. Here are the usual links. This is the GitHub repo. These, when you look at the slides for the presentation, are actually links that you click on. And yeah, that really brings it to an end for today. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.